is Dr. Kim Hermanson, and I'm going to share with you today a simple and powerful way for you to uncover your own inner wisdom and connect with whatever is deeply going on inside of you. And that method is a fairy tale. I use it a lot in my work. I do coaching groups, and I also do something I call doorway sessions when I work individually with clients. Especially if somebody comes not knowing where they want to begin or what they want to get out of the session, fairy tales will take us to a place where wisdom is showing up for us and the golden thread is showing up. When you write the words "once upon a time," it takes you somewhere. It opens up a portal to another dimension. Once upon a time, a long time ago, not this place and time, but some other place and time. And you could just imagine, just see what shows up. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a huge castle on the hill that was closed off and nobody ever was able to enter its gates. It could be anything. Your imagination is going to come up with what it is. When you write the words "once upon a time," you're opening a portal to a sacred place and a sacred time. It's sacred space that you're stepping into. And what shows up is going to be surprising. It's going to come from that surprising place of the sacred. The Western world is very dismissive of the imagination, and we consider it to be make-believe. If somebody shares a story or a dream or something like that, we'll say, "Oh, that's just something your mind made up." I'm going to have you all stop the video and write a fairy tale, but before you do that, I'm going to give you some pointers that's going to make it easier for you to sort of tap into that place. The first one is, of course, we want to get out of the box of what is acceptable adult behavior, because everybody knows, for example, fairy tales are for children, right? Well, the truth of the matter is they're a very powerful way of diving into your own psychology. And so they're not just for children. So we want to sort of get out of that what's acceptable box. The second thing I want you to keep in mind is that your creative process isn't linear. Your creative process is going to make jumps and leaps, and it's going to take you in unexpected and surprising directions. The sacred brings surprise, and we're tapping into the sacred dimension when we write a fairy tale, or when we do anything where we're going into a place where we don't know what's going to come. And so that's what happens, is it brings things that are surprising. So just let yourself be surprised. Another thing to keep in mind is that you want the images themselves to write this. Your rational mind is not writing the fairy tale. You're starting with the words "once upon a time, a long time ago," which is taking you to another place and time, and then you're just waiting to see what shows up for you when you write those words. And you might see an image of a castle or a road or a pond or whatever, and just let the images tell the tale, because they do have something to say to you. I'm going to share with you a fairy tale that I wrote just this morning, just to show you sort of the process that happens in the place you go into, that sort of feeling dimension. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a long, windy trail. She thought this was her trail to walk upon, but in fact, she had grown tired of it. She didn't want to go that way anymore. What she noticed is that she had something else to do, something else that was calling her. And this thing, whatever it was off the beaten path. It was something she would create that no one had ever seen before. It was time for her to get started. Now, the way I wrote that was just to feel into the first thing that happened when I sort of tuned in and closed my eyes was I saw this image of a long path, a long windy trail. And it was very clear that it was a trail for somebody to walk on. And so what happened was I just sort of stepped into that image of the trail and felt it. And I had the feeling sense of the trail and looking at the trail, just like, for example, you might step into a movie and feeling what it felt like. and then the story wrote itself from there. So that's the kind of thing that happens in a story when you're writing a fairy tale. Your conscious, rational mind is not going to be writing this fairy tale. You want to let go the reins of your rational mind and just let that imaginal place write the tale. The last thing I want to say about the process of writing a fairy tale is this is all working with the creative process. Whenever we work with images, we're working with the creative process. And our creative process always moves us in a positive direction. Our minds take us in negative directions and scary directions, but our creative process comes from our hearts, and it comes from a really good, loving place. And so if your fairy tale or your images are moving you in a scary place, you might notice that that's your mind, and just stop and pause for a moment and start breathing through your heart. If you know how to do heart breathing, just imagine that your heart is breathing, and just be quiet for a few moments and see if you can get back to that quiet place where something else is sort of taking over. Your creative process is taken over. The images that are lying below the surface are sort of taking over and writing for you. I do doorway sessions. I work individually with people, and I also hold groups. I'd love to work with you if you're interested. You can find me by going to kimhermanson.com. Thanks.